So many of you are wondering which truck is more fuel efficient. Is it the Freightliners or is it the Volvos? I get a lot of questions, but in this video, we're gonna compare these Volvos. We'll take 5 2020 Volvos and compare it to 5 2020 Cascadias. We'll go over their mileage, we'll go over their fuel consumption, we'll talk a little bit about repairs and maintenance, but the core of this video is to show you which truck is more fuel efficient. We're gonna take all 5 trucks and we'll take a whole year's worth of data, all 5 Volvos, and compare it to all 5 Freightliners, and we're gonna get a number on fuel consumption, and then we'll compare it to mileage. We'll talk about how much money does that equate to at the end of the year. Where do we spend more money, on the Volvos or on the Freightliners? In a recent poll that I've conducted, 1 out of every 2 trucks sold here in North America are either a Freightliner, which holds about 35% market share, or versus the Volvos, which hold about 15 or 16% market share. So 1 out of every 2 trucks sold here in North America are either a Freightliner or a Volvo. So before we get into the analytics, first let's talk about this Volvo. This Volvo is a 2020 760 VNL. It's got 455 horsepower and 2.64 axle ratio. It is a 12-speed automated transmission with overdrive. It has a Volvo D13 in it and 1,850 pounds of torque. And now let's get to our Cascadias. This Cascadia has a Detroit DD15 in it. It's set to 505 horsepower. It has 1,650 pounds of torque in it. It's a Gen 5 engine and a DT12 automated manual transmission. And it has a 2.64 axle ratio. So now that we have the specs of these 2 trucks, let's see which one is more fuel efficient.
All right, now that we're inside, I have my computer and analytics. So again, our goal for today is what is the cost? How much does it cost for fuel? Is one truck more fuel efficient than the other? Only you're gonna decide that. I will put the data in front of you, my data that I have here from ET Transport, and then you guys can make your own conclusions. So primarily, there's things that you need to understand about our fleet. We run the Midwest USA and Southeast USA with our entire fleet. Okay, so the mileages should be all the same at the end of the year. So we're gonna do a whole year snapshot because sometimes trucks perform better in the winter. So Volvos can or maybe perform better in the winter than Freightliners, and then Freightliners might outperform the Volvos in the summertime. So that's why it's very important that we do the entire year when we're doing this analysis. We have a lot more Cascadias than we do have Volvos, but I just selected 5 and 5. We don't have a problem here at ET Transport with company drivers. So there's never trucks standing without a driver. So we don't have these issues in our fleet. The most important data, I believe, is the 1 year, because it's very easy to outperform somebody in 30 days, but when you take a 1 year and 130 or 125,000 miles, it'll give you a clear picture of which trucks outperform or do better on fuel consumption. So here are the Volvos, and let's select the entire year, and I'll post this up. We'll do August 1st, 2021, and we will go until July 31st, 2022, which will give us a full 12 months. So anything that starts with a 3, 7, so these are the unit numbers that are 2020 Volvos. We have our best performing truck is 7.9 miles per gallon. Then we have 7.5 miles per gallon, 7.4, 7.4, and 7.2, which is our worst performing Volvo. So with these stats, also extremely important is the miles driven. So here we have 115,000 miles, and then we have the distance of 139,000 miles, 132,000 miles, 84,000 miles, and another one that drove 61,000 miles. So very important, we'll do also total mileage driven, and that is going to give you a clear indication of reliability. So that's another thing that I want to bring out in this video, is not just the fuel consumption, but also the reliability of a truck. So let me put on my nerd hat for this calculation. Okay, so these 5 trucks totaled 532,000 miles is what these 5 Volvos produced. So now that we have the data for the Volvos for an entire year, now I'm just gonna select my 2020 Cascadias, and you can see here that we have 8.4, 8.3, 8.8, and 7.8. So my worst performing Cascadia produces 7.8 miles per gallon, and my best one throughout the year produces 8.4 miles per gallon. But very important, let's look at the mileages driven. So these 5 Cascadias drove 686 132,000 miles. Okay, so you can see that the Cascadias, these 5 Cascadias have driven a lot more, okay, than these 5 Volvos. First, let's concentrate on the fuel consumption, then I'll get into why the mileage difference. So disclaimer, there are no teams in any one of these 10 units that I've chosen. So it's only single drivers going cross-border. They're going to the Midwest USA and Southeast USA. I would say 80% of their driving happens in the US, and probably 20-25% of their driving happens here in Canada. So the next step, I'm gonna need to take some time. I'll do some math. What I'm trying to get at is the 532,000 miles. I'm gonna try to get the average fuel consumption of those 532 miles based on the data that we have from our 5 Volvos, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the Cascadias. And then the second part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you annually if you were to drive. I mean, on average, a driver drives 120,000 miles per year, a long haul driver, and I'm going to show you what the difference in fuel and fuel alone, okay, what the cost difference is between the Volvos and the Cascadias on an annual basis. And then if you're ever thinking of buying a Volvo or a Cascadia, maybe this video would help you out. All right, guys, so I've done my number crunching. So first, let's talk about these Volvos. So the 2020 Volvos, if I add all those numbers together and divide it by 5, the average mile per gallon that a Volvo drove the 2020s was 7.48 miles per gallon. Now, if I do the exact same equation with my Cascadias, the data for the entire year, I get 8.1 miles per gallon throughout the year. So let's do a formula right now. So we'll take the average driver, long haul truck driver, I would say produces 120,000 miles per year. Okay, so 120,000 miles per year. And if you divide that, we'll take the Volvos first, by 7.48. We get 16,042 gallons. So that's how many gallons used. Now, the national average today, I would say, is $4.50 US. So that means that I spent on fuel throughout the entire year, $72,192 is what I spent for the entire year on fuel with the Volvos. So we'll put that number on the left-hand side. Now let's do the exact same formula with the Cascadias. This truck consumed 14,814 gallons. And if I multiply that with the same national average of $4.50 US per gallon, I get $66,666. Now, if I take that and subtract it for my 72,192, we get a savings of $5,525 is the difference in fuel consumption between the Volvos and the Cascadias. When you are an owner-operator, you have one truck. If you're a small fleet owner, you have, 4, 5, 6 trucks. $5,255, multiply that by 10 trucks, well, now you're saving $52,000 a year. What if a fleet has 100 trucks? And if they're running their Cascadias, they would be saving about $500,000 a year, a fleet of 100 power units over the Volvo. So you can look at it as one truck, you can look at it as 4 trucks, 5 trucks, 10 trucks. But one of the things that I'd like for you to look at is the amount of miles driven. The 5 Cascadias produced 686,000 miles, and the 5 Volvos produced 532,000 miles. There is a significant difference in downtime between the 2 units. So parts are just not available when it comes to the Volvo. So when a truck is down, it's down for a long period of time. Meaning that if we're waiting for a part, you're usually waiting for 7 days, for 10 days, for 12 days. It's very common with the Volvos. With the Cascadias, the parts are just there. There is no waiting time. There is no downtime. We usually get them in within 24 hours, 48 hours. The truck is in and out of the shop within 2 or 3 days. So that's the biggest difference, I would say. The fuel is huge when you're talking about 100 trucks, or you're talking about 200 trucks. What about a fleet of 500 trucks or 750 trucks? It's a big difference. When you're looking at as one owner operator, probably not such a huge difference. We're only talking about 5,000, 5,500. But it's clear to me that these Cascadias are running more efficient than these Volvos, and you can see the data that I've pulled from my computer that Cascadias are outperforming the Volvos in fuel consumption. All right, so let's talk about a couple of these comments. So the first comment I'm going to talk about is a comment from Tony. I wish you would talk about how hard it is to find someone to fix the Volvo when it breaks down in the middle of nowhere. Freightliner parts, repairmen are everywhere. Volvo is a specialty truck. So that's a comment that I received about 9 months ago. I couldn't agree with you more. You are 100% right. The Volvos, you know, when they break down in the middle of nowhere, it is hard to find somebody to fix them. It's also hard to find parts for them. Whereas the Freightliners, they are a lot easier to find somebody to fix it. You know, any repair shop could probably do a job on a Freightliner. The second comment, in your opinion, which one is better? Not only regarding fuel efficiency, but maintenance in general. So I would have to say that the Freightliners are better when it comes to maintenance. They don't have, I would say, half as many problems that the Volvos do. My experience with our fleet, I don't know, maybe if, you know, we don't run the West Coast, for example. Maybe drivers on the West Coast are experiencing different, or we don't run the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, we stay out of those areas. So I don't know, maybe they perform better in those areas. But what we do, the Midwest USA, the Southeast USA, I would have to say that as a whole, the Freightliners do outperform. For me, I believe, in my opinion, that those are better trucks for our fleet. And then the third comment, I drive the speed limit. If weather and conditions are good, the way I combat the higher cost of fuel is a simple and easy way. Don't haul cheap freight. So I do agree with you in an economy that's thriving, but once you are in a recession, and I believe that right now in the US and in Canada and trucking altogether is not the greatest times, and you'll see that more and more people, you cannot just refuse cheap freight or else you'll go out of business. And it depends on the situation that you're in. So if you're an owner operator, that your truck is fully paid off, you really don't care. I mean, my father's 69, he really doesn't care what the cost of fuel is, and he doesn't care about his fuel consumption, to tell you the truth, because his truck is paid off. He doesn't have any payments. If things are bad, he'll just park his truck for a couple of months and on he goes again. But in a situation where you have a lease payment, your monthly payment, and you don't have that cushion and your truck is not paid off, there's no way that you can just park your truck. You have those bills because you'll go out of business. You'll go out of business real fast. A fleet owner with 4 or 5 units cannot just say no to cheap freight, because if that's the norm right now, and if you know, freight rates are $2.25 or $2.10 per mile, there's really not much that we can do about them. And saying no to cheap freight is a simple and easy way to live life, but it doesn't apply to everybody. So now that you have the numbers for the fuel consumption for both the Volvos and the Cascadias, again, these are our fleet numbers. It doesn't mean that every fleet is going to get the same outcome. But now that you see our numbers here in our fleet, what do you think about them? Is there anything that we're doing wrong? Is there anything that we could do in order to better our fuel consumption? Are you getting better fuel consumptions either on your Volvos or Cascadias? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and leave a comment down below. Stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I'm Ronen, R-O-N-E-N, and I'll catch you in my next video.